never fails. My guest today is Christopher Willis, aka Life, a man who was once sentenced to 144 years, spent over 3 years in solitary confinement, and came out not just breathing, but building. He's the founder of the Life Unit, a nonprofit committed to giving justice, impacted individuals as a real, the Life Unit, a nonprofit committed to giving justice, impacted individuals a real shot at restoration. He's been through the fire, and he's here to tell it, not sugarcoat it, not polished, just raw, real, and with purpose. Hello, King. How art thou?
I'm doing good. Thank you for that amazing introduction. But for sure, I'm glad to be here today and have the conversation and get to tell the story. So thank you so much for having me.
No doubt. I really appreciate you. I am so happy to finally make this happen. I know how busy we both have been, and I know what goes into everything that we do. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with me today. Now, you heard my introduction, but I'd rather hear yours in your own words. You've lived 100 lives in one body. Tell us, who are you now, Life?
Who am I now? I am a storyteller, a social content creator, advocate, organizer, disruptor. Somebody that's here to not just amplify, but to support those that maybe have not yet been heard yet and whose stories need to be told as well.
The serendipity of it all is so in alignment with what the Mamba Rum and Unfiltered platform stands for and is all about, and that's what I love. So I thank you. I thank you for that. I love to hear and see how others define themselves, and that's a beautiful thing to see. We actually connected online, Facebook, and did a quick virtual meet and greet a year ago, but then life did what life does. But I hit you back when I started Kings Unchained because I knew your voice needed to be in this space. And I think that says something about what's still possible in these digital streets. So what made you say yes to linking with someone you didn't know? And what do you think that says about building real connection and community, even in spaces most people say is fake?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I'm glad you asked that question. I came home, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but I came home after 17 years of prison in 2020, January of 2020. 2 months later, the pandemic was in full swing.
Wow. Wow. The hit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
that's amazing.
Right. Like, and
COVID changed the world.
Right. And here I am. I'm walking back into society after 16 years, 11 months to be exact. And I'm supposed to find footing on unsolid ground.
Right.
You know, so I started getting on the internet, believe it or not, because I needed help. That's step one. I needed help. I needed to be heard. I was coming home from prison in a place where I was not mentally well. On the outside, I was celebrated. I had support. I came home married. I already had a home and things that a lot of people didn't have when they came home from prison. But on the inside, there's a video that's posted on my social media that shows me walking out of prison, and I'm twitching. I'm numb in the face while everybody's celebrating. So that was in 2020. I put out that flare, so to say. And I did that in the form of a TikTok one day.
Yeah.
And the TikTok was a 7-second TikTok with the trending music at the time. I can't even remember the sound, but it said something along POV, you came home after 17 years in prison, and now there's a pandemic, And the video did 900,000 some views.
Wow. Let's pause. Let me pause right there, because to me, 7 seconds impact. 7 seconds. Not only how amazing that is, but also on the flip side of that coin, how disturbing it is how short form content rules the day.
That's real.
Because there was more than 7 seconds to your experience.
Yeah.
It was an eternity.
Yeah. I think
I digress. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
I tend to do.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, because I've actually heard somebody say that and break that down about that 7 seconds, and I think it, it only takes about a second for the light to get turned on in a dark room, and it doesn't. It's not about the length of time for the message to be spoke. It's just about, does it make an impact or not?
Right.
And although I will say it is disturbing some things on social media, what happened for me was when those 900,000 people watched me, and I went from a place where I was in solitary confinement, where I was in a place where the judge said I'd never come home, where I was, all these things. I started to see support, comments of support and love, and I didn't find that anywhere else outside of my immediate family and circle. And man, it changed my life, So when people,
and as it should, it should.
Yeah.
For the sake of this recording, and I know that you may be broadcasting live, so the audience may consider this as B-roll. They get to see what happens behind the scenes of an audio-only podcast, which I love because we get to edit this stuff out and keep it flowing for those who get to listen to it on the platforms. But with that said, let me say, as we're talking, some questions might seem redundant. Like I told you before, conversation is fluid, so don't worry about it. If you hear me ask you something, you'd be like, didn't she just ask? Let me just go with the flow, and best believe I'll be able to craft it in a way when I get ready to record it. But that said, let's get back to it. That right there, I think it's so important to find your people, your tribe, whether it's creatives, entrepreneurs, community leaders, whoever is moving in the same direction as you, because connection is vital. We don't grow in isolation, and that's one of the core pillars of Kings Unchained. Life, before we even touch the system, the sentence, the bars, I want to sit in the space of who you were before, not the charges, not the case, not the time, but the boy, the young man, the version of you that maybe nobody took the time to really see. Who were you before the world labeled you a felon?
Man, who I was a kid that grew up in a regular middle class family. The only abnormal thing initially about me coming up was I was adopted, but I was adopted by a mother and father that loved me like no other. Came up, Black mother, Mexican father. I got the blessing of being able to see different cultures. I grew up in Chicago, had uncles and cousins, and I had all that, and I was grateful. I was not somebody that really got in trouble, but looking back, I can see cries for help. I can remember when I told my first lie in school. I can remember when I started my first fight, but I was one of those kids that the best way I can explain it growing up, I would have been good whichever direction I was headed. Yeah. And growing up, eventually my parents, they just grew apart. A lot of people do that. And then it was just me and mom, and mom's working 2 jobs to keep a roof over our head, and now I'm out there in the streets. I'm out. So, but even with that, the only amount of trouble I got in, it was a slap on the wrist compared to a lot of people. I was able to get into the United States Air Force and enlist at 17.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. I scored extremely high on the ASVAB. I had a 4.0 GCA while going to college. I was somebody that was book smart, but I was inquisitive about the streets as well.
Right. Let me expound on that, because as a Black single mother, I can definitely say that often the misconstruement, if that's even a word, people misconstrue how people fall into traps. How can this Black boy from a middle class family with good parenting and intelligence and educations and probabilities for prospects for the future, for his future, fall into these traps. And we often forget that as single mothers, we have to go to work. We have to sometimes work 2 jobs to take care of our family. We can't call on the village no more. We can't trust the village.
Yeah.
We are forced and cattled and into communities that we can afford that don't often that look like places or environments that are conducive for raising young, intelligent minds. So because we have to go to work and take care of provide for our family, you know, our children, somebody else is filling that role. Just simply me. And I don't, you know, and I'll get off this in a minute, but just simply me, because I need this is a community conversation. It's not just one thing. It's so nuanced. So with this real quickly, as a single mother, I attempted to work second shift. Now, we all know that first shift jobs, you're at work, your children are at work, they're at school. Third shift jobs, you're at work, your children are asleep. So the most busiest time of the day is second shift. That's homework, that's interaction, that's, you know, that's family connection. Right. So when you remove that, what happens? Grades fail. Attention fails. Behavior starts to get disruptive. And you don't realize just how that one life change that forces you to work second shift can have a deep effect on your child's life and development. It's so much deeper than what people want to make it, but we skirt on the surface and we like to lump everything and stereotype every goddamn situation, and it's sad as fuck. I'm sorry. It's sad. It's so sad. But I digress, and I'm sorry about that. But yeah.
No, it's real, man.
I just had to expound on that just for a minute, because it's not always. These traps are set. The community strips you of your identity, forces you to conform, or you know what I mean, or be labeled as weak. You're in the shark infested environment. You either get information or relocate, and people don't have to relocate.
Yeah, it's I always, man, and salute to the mothers, the sisters, the aunties, the grandmas, everybody. Here's the reality of the situation. Our women need more support. I know that firsthand. And it's weird. As an advocate, there's more women advocates than there are men advocates. But that's a whole nother, you know, maybe we'll get into it.
That's the history of time, though.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, though. You know, that's why I get up every single freaking day and do what I do. Somebody's like, why you don't take days off? Why you always on the internet? Because somebody's little boy is watching TikTok right now and his mom's at work. And he might see my TikTok right now. That's why.
Right.
People
are stuck in tradition. They're not willing to understand, no matter how much they have fun interacting with technology as they do all day, every day. They're still not able to reconcile how technology has taken over our lives and how eventually these spaces is all we'll be operating in. You won't see people operating in the physical so much anymore. COVID changed everything, how we even interact and talk to each other. So everybody is online. You need to understand that your kids are on Roblox, they're on YouTube, they're on TikTok. You know, you allow your kids on these platforms that strictly say you must be 15 and older, and even then you can't have social media in this house. My kids won't have cell phones, and they have to battle that with the kids they go to school with and deal with that ridicule because they won't be getting smartphones. But eventually this year I plan to give them, you know, the Obama phone, you know what I'm saying? A little text-to-talk phone, you know, something for them to, because they have to in this day and age, have a way to be able to be contacted. But you won't have, the world won't have access to you at all times. Internet shuts down here at a certain time. You can't even sneak on and get on the internet around here. Parental controls, all the things that people aren't applying into their parenting. So it leaves the room for people to be predatory and prey on your child's mind, their energy, their intelligence, their self-esteem, their confidence. But on the flip side, it also allows room for platforms like Life Here and the Life Unit and what he's bringing, and we'll talk about that here soon. But it allows space for that too. So we have to be able to catch up. You know what I'm saying? And get modern and get creative in the ways that we're reaching and doing our advocacy, because kids are watching.
100%.
Chris, and I'm sorry, Life, was there anyone who tried to pull you out or even just saw you for who you were underneath it all and tried to help you?
I mean, my mother tried in her own way every day, you know, the things that she could see, but outside of that, no. I remember going to school. I was at Glenbard East, and a math teacher, I had a math binder, and you were supposed to put all the papers in the binder and staple them together or whatever, and I didn't have staples or whatever. Something happened, and instead of him just telling me what was wrong with the paperwork being loose, he took my folder and dumped it on the ground in front of the class. And
wow,
and
are you serious?
Right, and tried to make me pick it up, which I didn't. But this was a traumatizing thing. These are the type of teachers I had. I had the occasional good teacher, but that's an example of the type of instructors. Outside of that, you know, I don't think anybody else in my family really knew what direction I was headed, because I was good at playing that role. You know, I was
exactly.
You know, so that was the dangerous part. And if you're a parent, you're watching this, you need to know you can't see everything. Like, even you just can't. Even if it's a 2-parent household, as a family advocate, I can tell you, unfortunately, I'm speaking to a lot of 2-parent households now, because those numbers are going up drastically, by the way. Shout out to us. And it's still happening, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? And we got to pay attention to culture. We got to pay attention to society. We got to pay attention to community. If your child's not speaking to you, then start paying attention to the things that your child is paying attention to.
Because what you entertain?
Yeah. If they're on Roblox for 20 hours out the day, pay attention to the conversations they having on Roblox. Because I had a parent, they played me a recording of a conversation. They're talking about weapons on Roblox. You know what I'm saying?
There's and people just can't think. They think it's fantastical. That is not happening, not in their household. Kids learn how to hide things early. They have the internet now. They can just ask
kids are smarter now.
What to do.
Kids are smarter now. They can learn quicker than we ever could. We had to go through the encyclopedia.
ChatGPT was eventually used for evil, and it started, you know, telling people false lies. Fake news.
Better not ask you no ideology.
So people immersed in how smart AI is, and it's his best friend, my therapist, and I can tell ChatGPT my whole life, and it plans it out for me. It's like the best thing ever.
That's crazy.
And and then on the flip side of that, as history has shown us, what we have created for good is eventually used for evil. So stay woke, people. But that's a whole nother conversation in itself. Not only AI and its impact, but social media, education. Those are definitely topics that I dive into in conversations we'll have. But it definitely highlights the importance of catching up, Mustard, because social media isn't going anywhere. It's deeply rooted into our society, our everyday lives. You can't wake up without posting good morning. You can't go to sleep without posting good night to the world. So you have to think about impact. Not only the good, but the bad and the ugly. Life. Let's talk about the moment things shifted. When did you first come face to face with the system? And I don't mean just getting caught. I mean realizing that this system wasn't built for you to make it out whole.
Oh, I knew that the system wasn't built for me to make it out whole when I knew it a few times. I knew it at different levels. I knew it one time, and then I knew it more another occasion. But the first time would be where I was standing in the court. first and foremost, I want to break down how the day went. So I was supposed to go to court to get sentenced 2 months out.
Mm-hmm.
I was not given the opportunity at a plea. Most people are given a plea bargain. They're a plea deal. They're able to sign a piece of paper and know that they can accept X amount of years instead of just going in front of a judge or a jury in order to get sentenced. I was not given that option because I refused to testify. So I was woke up one morning at about 4:30 in the morning, and I was told that I had to go to court that day, and it was about 2 months earlier than expected when I was supposed to go to sentencing.
Now bring it back here because I'm feeling a little lost here when you're talking about this here. Now, is this for a first offense or the offense that led?
This is for 144 years, right here.
This is for what you're serving, for what you were serving. Okay.
Yep, this is for 100.
At what point in those years did this happen and occur?
This is before I got sentenced. This is the morning of.
Before you got sentenced.
Yep, okay. I'm getting ready to go to court. Yep. So I'm getting ready to go to court. And this is for, if anybody knows my story, they see me on social media, I got charged with some robbery offenses.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to get charged or going to get sentenced. They called me to court 2 months earlier than expected. When I show up to court that morning to the bullpen, my public defender walks in to the bullpen. He smells like he always does, like old liquor, like he's been drinking heavy the night before, and he may have took a shot coming in. I had the type of public defender that the collar was always wrinkled and the tie was loose around the neck, and the hair weren't never combed all the way. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
In books.
There you go. And I'm 19 and I don't know nothing about the justice system. I'm so naive to this that in my mind, I don't know that I can request for a different legal defense. I don't know none of this, right? And on top of it, I'm like most Black or brown kids, when they go to court, they got a public defender. So when he walks into the bullpen, he says, "Hey, you got court today for sentencing." I said, "Man, I'm not supposed to go to sentencing for 2 more months." He said, "They moved it up. Nobody told you?" I said, "No." So he said, "Well, I sent word through the jail." I said, and again, I'm a 19-year-old kid, y'all. Watch this. So he looks at me. He says, "We're getting ready to go out there. The best I can do is get you 35 to 54 years to do in prison."
Wow.
Now, what I want to tell you is my
offense. The best he can do.
The best he can do is 35 to 54 years to do in prison. Now, for anybody that's listening to my story that doesn't know, I got locked up for a robbery where the weapon was a BB gun. It wasn't even, nobody got physically harmed, and I was the driver. I didn't even go into the establishment. That is my story. This is a true story. Okay? They research my case, Google my name, it's out there. Anybody that's hearing this, I'm sitting in here for a BB gun. I'm the driver. Nobody physically harmed. I got 3 other co-defendants. They the ones that went in there. They done all ran their mouth. I'm the youngest one. I didn't go down that path. And he tells me 35 to 54 years to do. I'm 19 and I'm looking at the math. I say, "Well, I won't be home till I'm in my 50s. I said, "I'm over. I'm done."
Wow.
I looked at him. Yeah. Why? Hey, look. Now here's the scary part, because as a family advocate, as a youth advocate, as somebody whose families call me in different states and say, "Can you help me? Can you come to the court? Can you talk to the lawyer?" This is what I did that a lot of young kids don't do. When he said, "This is the best I can do," I said, "No." I said, "I'm not doing that." I didn't. It was something in me, and I ain't here to push nothing. I'm saved. I know it was the Holy Spirit. Yeah, I don't care what nobody else say. For me, it was the Holy Spirit. That jumped out my mouth. I said, "No." I said, "I can't do no 35 to whatever 50 years you talking about." He looked at me. He said, "Well, I'll give you 2 minutes and to figure it out. And when you come back, let me know what you want me to tell the prosecutor and the judge." This is what my public defender told me, a 19-year-old boy in the court of law in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in the former last capital of the South, for a BB gun.
I where was his compassion? I wonder if
Where
he's
was
still
his
alive
compassion?
today if he was in the pew.
Hey, it's funny because there's some that's standing there witness now, and that in the most humble space. When you try to bury the righteous, the persevere, because God knew my heart weren't an evil one. And that's the thing, that's the real story, right? If your heart is true, if your heart is righteous, if you're not out here trying to do evil to the world, you can find your way. But it was a fight. It was a dog fight from then, because at that point in time, as a 19-year-old boy, I had to figure out how much of my life I'd be willing to give the courts that they would be okay with. And I had to figure out how many of those years would I be able to survive and make it back home.
Right.
And when he came back in, I was watching other young black boys and brown boys get life sentences and 60 years.
Wow.
I was watching white guys get L notes and football numbers too. Now everybody was getting it. And I said to myself, I just want to be home before I'm 40. Now, if anybody's hearing me, right,
compromising in your mind,
I have to compromise 2 decades of my life. And a lot of people could never understand this. And I pray that you and nobody you ever love ever find yourself sitting in a situation where you got to sacrifice, or not sacrifice, but give up. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no other way out. And luckily, God was with me, whatever it is, because I believe in divine time and purpose. I believe I got picked up and dropped off for a reason. I came out with that. He granted my wish, and he ended up giving me 144 years, all suspended, but 19.
Let's go.
So then I had to do 85% of that. So I knew I had a number that I could fight through. I knew that I'd be at home in my 30s, and my 30s sounded better than my 50s.
Amen. I bet it did.
Right.
Better than your 40s.
And better than my 40s.
Clinging to every little piece you can get. It's all good.
There you go. And that was the moment where I realized I was in this great country. And I love the people here, but the justice system is jacked. And I realized where I was at. I realized when my grandmother told me that I was in the South and I was no longer in Chicago, I really realized it in those moments. But that was the start of it all. And from there, the next step would be me getting sent straight to a level 4 maximum security prison as a 20-year-old once I left that jail. Yeah.
I cannot imagine. Like, I thank you, one, for sharing that. I don't take it lightly when someone lays down those early pieces of their story, the ones that don't always get told but carry the most weight. Because when we talk about prison, too often the world skips everything that came before. The pain, the pressure, the silence, the setup. But I want to pause here because something happened between the boy you just told us about and the man who ended up behind the bars. And I want to hold space for a moment for that shift, that encounter with the system that ultimately trapped you for a time. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure. I'm an open book.
Okay. Let's sit in that space between boyhood and the bars, because people love to focus on the prison time, but they don't ask what led up to it. They don't ask what it means to be young, black, broke, hungry, angry, and still expected to make the right decisions every time, even you've never been taught or have seen what safe even feels like. And if you have, how your everyday environment strips away your identity and once again forces you to conform to what you see around you. So I want to ask you, no cap, no judgment, what led to that moment? Not what happened on paper, but what was really going on around you, inside you, within your environment that led to a decision that changed your life?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So how I ended up in prison, like the actual offense, I was in the United States Air Force and I was angry. Okay. Because I just got to thinking, when you asked that question, what I realized about the law, I want to back up before that.
No problem.
When I was getting ready to go into United States Air Force, I was getting ready to go into security forces. What security forces is, that's the military police for United States Air Force, because I always wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be in the FBI, the CIA. I wanted to be one of them dudes over there.
Yeah, that's what's up.
When I left, or when I was getting ready to go to basic training, I was dating an Italian girl at the time. And we get pulled over. It's early in the morning. It's like, I don't know what time. It's like 6 in the morning. It's really early, whatever, right? And she picks me up, and the police pulls us over and says I'm not wearing a seatbelt. I'm wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, you know how it goes.
Okay.
You in the South, baby.
Right. Well, no. Right now I'm in Chicago. This happened in Chicago. But still, Chicago. Listen. Man, you better look up. Chicago is one of the most segregated and separated cities. Anyways, we get pulled over. The cop writes me a ticket. I beg the cop. I say, man, don't write me a ticket. I'm getting ready to go to the Air Force. If you write me a ticket, they might not let me in. And he writes me the ticket anyways. And he says, well, you're going to have to figure it out. Yeah, he wrote. So look, boom. So now I'm talking to the recruiter. I'm getting ready to go to basic. And he says, you got a ticket? Oh, you can't go in the security forces. We got to give you a waiver. So I end up. Right. So then I end up going into the mechanics field. And I was never happy with that. You know what I'm saying? And I was miserable. So now I'm in the military. I'm miserable. I'm drinking. I'm stationed in Minot, North Dakota. You can go to Canada, and legal is like 18 up there.
Yeah.
I'm partying and I'm fighting.
And you're a child in the grand scheme of things.
I'm 17. I enlisted at 17 out of basic and tech. I was 18.
Think about it. We're not even look, we haven't even, and we're not going to, but I'm gonna pose this.
Yeah.
I want people to look up the growth, the development, child development.
Oh, the pineal gland, 25. Yeah.
Boys. Just what's happening in your body, the chemical changes, the biological changes. We're not even talking about the biology of being a young person because see, they don't look at black boys as that. You're instantly a man. You know what I'm saying? You a man. You are a man in their eyes. They only call you boy when they trying to degrade you. Especially here in the South, they never see you as a young boy, just trying to find his way, trying to give him some redemption, some correction. But no, instead, you're going to capitalize and double down. You know what I mean? Don't get me started. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So I'm in the military. I'm miserable. Yeah. I'm fighting. I used to have an issue with fighting, right? I used to get beat up a lot when I was younger. I was the light-skinned kid that was getting beat up in the hood, and then I learned how to fight. Once I realized I was gonna get bruised up anyways, I started to fight.
So light-skinned people problem.
Yeah, I had to go, but anyway. So I'm in the mix, right? And I get in trouble. They end up giving me a general discharge from the United States Air Force because I was good. Once again, I was good on base, but when I was off base, it was a totally different lifestyle. I'm fighting over girls, all that stuff. Boom. So I find myself not back, but in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I grew up in Chicago, but my mother, when I went to the military, she moved back with her mother in Virginia. And that's when the shift really occurred. Like when I left the military and was back in Virginia, now I was living in a house with my grandmother, my mother, my uncle, and sharing a room with my cousin, my older cousin.
Right.
And environmental stress is tearing us up, y'all. That's the number one reason for a lot of things. That's the number one reason right now. I believe that the rate for people unaliving themselves is soaring right now. But I was battling depression. I was an angry teenager. I would later on in life find out that I was diagnosed with type 1 bipolar. You know, all these things were going on unaddressed. And one night after my cousin had moved out, he's at an apartment he's got now. His older friends are over there. They're drinking. I'm in the mix. I pull up and he just tell me, he's like, yo, will you take me and my people up the street? And I'm like, what for? And he's like, man, I owe some money. I got to pay my rent. He's running down a list.
Right.
And he's like, you ain't even got to get out the car or out the truck. And I'm like, wait. What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? That don't sound right. And here's what I want to tell you. The whole time we're drinking and whatnot, and we're passing the bottle around. And the first couple times we talking, I'm like knowing it off. I'm like, man, I'm not doing that. Y'all crazy. You tripping. Da, 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 da.
Right.
But as it's coming around, my guard's dropping, and then I hear him say, "Well, we're not going in there with a real weapon. We're just gonna scare them. Ain't nobody gonna see you. You're not gonna get out the truck. Yeah,
that peer pressure.
Ain't nobody gonna see you. You're not gonna get out the truck. It's just gonna be us. Da da da. So now I'm like, okay, bet. I'm just like, all right, bet. I'll take y'all up here. And as a 19-year-old kid again, or 18 at the time when this happened, yo, I'm not thinking things through. I don't understand life. I don't understand like, just because laws exist, these kids don't really understand the law. Like, they should have a class. I'm fighting for to have, especially in certain communities, they need to have a class where the laws are explained to these kids and what happens if you do. Don't just tell a kid don't do this and you're gonna get in trouble. Tell a kid if you do this, you're gonna get a life sentence. You know what I'm saying?
But that would go against the school to prison pipeline, but that's a different conversation.
Right. But well, I already opened one school. I'm trying to open another one. That's coming soon.
Let's go.
So
that's what I'm talking about.
Right. So I'm sitting here, and next thing I know, like a lot of kids, man, and I make a decision, and I'm in the truck, and I'm driving them, and I feel sick, and my stomach's telling me, call grandma. Don't call the people. Call grandma and tell her cousin, my cousin bugging out. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I go against, but I go against my gut though. And what
you didn't understand spiritual warfare then?
No, I did. That's the thing. No, I did. Man, I had a great, man. People brought me in, man. I had people that prayed with me, for me, taught me, man, all that, man. But it's the thing is, I was not obedient to what I knew was not right. Like, I could feel it, but I was more, that peer pressure that you spoke of, that had more of an impact on me. I was more concerned with what I could see in front of me versus what I couldn't see. You know what I'm saying? And that was,
once again, the biology.
That's
what I'm saying? Impulse control, being able to say no,
but most okay with it. 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, they're not saying no. We're not wired. Your pineal gland, like, we're not even fully formed mentally where we need to be until we're 25. You know what I'm saying? Which is
exactly.
So if I'm not even wired a certain way, if science says I'm not wired a certain way, yo, guess what? You know what I'm saying? I might not move that way. So I'm in the truck, we pull up, and next thing I know, we're in front of the spot, and they book, they get out the truck, and I'm sitting there, and it's like the longest 2 minutes of my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm in the truck. My heart's racing. I don't want to leave them, but I'm like, dang, I got to get out of here. And next thing I know, by the time my thoughts cycle, the door opens up, the lights hit on in the truck. My cousin's dropping money. His friends in the back, they screaming, they done dropped the bandana. You know what I'm saying? All that. And doors closed. I'm driving away. And I get them back. I'm trying to justify my mind. I'm trying to say, well, it's raining. Maybe the water washed the fingerprints off the money he dropped. Maybe the bandana washed down the sewer. I'm just trying to come up with reasons that in my mind, we're going to be okay. But by the time I dropped them off and got to my grandma's where I was staying at the time, man, I was up the whole, any cricket that chirped, anything that moved, I felt like the cops was coming. But they didn't come that night. Yeah, they didn't come that night, though. They didn't come that night.
No.
Yeah, they didn't come that
night. Did you ever feel like a period there in between time that it was safe, or were you always looking for the next shoe to drop?
No, man, listen. All right, so what happened after that was pure chaos. I'm glad to be here. Hey.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah,
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I told you what was gonna happen.
Well, I'm glad to be here, but when I say I'm glad to be here, I'm talking about like alive, like in 2025, free. But yeah, I'm glad to be here too, for sure. But I'm telling you, like, I know I was protected through the storm. People be like, yo, he crazy, he bugging out. But no, I'm not. But listen,
not at all.
We've
lost our connection to our spiritual side, and that's the problem.
Yeah, man.
They ripped that from us.
Yeah, some of us,
us something different.
Yeah.
And that's a different conversation, but
Yeah. So I basically what happened was I was extremely paranoid and scared of everything. Like I knew we were gonna get in trouble. And I'm gonna tell you how karma is, and how what you plant will eventually come to the surface, and why I live my life a certain way. If you hear something crazy about me, they done made it up or generated it with AI. I'm telling you. So I'm telling y'all. So basically, this was going on. My cousin and his friends, they're playing loud music at my cousin's apartment one day. And it's about 2 weeks after the robbery had happened. And one of my cousin's friends my cousin allowed one of his friends and child's mother and child to move in to the apartment. The child was an infant.
Yeah.
They're playing loud music. Neighbors walk by upstairs, bringing groceries in from the car in the apartment complex. Right. They hear loud music. They hear a baby crying.
Yeah.
They smell smoke. So boom.
Yeah.
They go ahead and do what concerned citizens evidently do, and they call law enforcement because they heard a baby crying. As a 41-year-old man, I would say, hey, if you're concerned about a baby crying and you feel like it's that serious, maybe I'd make the call. I don't know. I wasn't there. But that's what happened. So they come to my cousin's apartment. They knock on the door. My cousin opens the door because he's thinking it's me coming by a spot, because I usually come by around that time. When he opens the door, the cops smell the smoke. They hear the baby crying, and they basically had probable cause, or they made the call. Whatever happened, eventually they came inside of his apartment and they began searching. They didn't find anything but one thing. They found a blue money bag.
Wow.
Now, listen.
Wow.
Y'all could put us on one of them episodes of America's Dumbest or whatever. I don't know. I'm not the one that decided to keep it. Listen, I don't even know why they kept that thing 2 weeks later. I don't know why it was there. But this is an example of what happens when you do things and you know all that. And
before you go there, tell me their ages, because I think that's important to know too. Were they older cousins, or were you all roughly around the same age?
No, my cousin's like 12 years older than me.
Wow.
And
so
no,
he
10
was older.
10 years. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then everybody was older than me, at least by 5 or 6 years. I was the baby out the group.
Yeah.
But from there, essentially, next thing we know, warrants got issued for my cousin, two of his older friends, or two of our co-defendants. The two co-defendants ran down to Florida. They got caught on some like loitering charges, brought back. They began talking. My cousin ended up trying to rob like a Chinese restaurant, like a separate place or location or something.
Okay.
And he got caught for that. So he got brought in. And the ill moment with that was, once that happened, Christmas Eve of 2002, the detectives came to my grandma's front door. I'll never forget. I'm sitting in the living room. I'm trying to chill, act like life is normal. I haven't heard from my cousin for like weeks now. I don't know where nobody's at. His apartment is empty. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to justify in my mind that everything's okay though. And they come to the door. They knock on the door. And I'm like, yo, why are these two dudes in suits at my grandma's door? And of course, once I open the door, they're like, yo, I'm Detective such and such. I'm Detective. They give the introduction. They're like, yo, just want you to see this. And they hold up a picture of my cousin who had been hogtied and beat at the last place he tried to rob. It didn't work out. Whatever happened, they jumped him. They did it. And they showed me this picture. And the detective looks, he says, your warrant hasn't came up yet, but when it does, make sure you run somewhere warm. You know what I'm saying? Like, and make
glee, like they were gleeful.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they were like, yo, we're gonna go on vacation when we get you. Like, go to Florida or something. So I knew they was coming. And I also knew right then I wasn't gonna run. Like, I was at that point, I was just waiting. But Yeah, it wasn't that long before.
And maybe it was reverse psychology. Who knows?
No,
but
no, not at that point.
No, not even giving them the benefit of the doubt there.
No,
I'm always looking for the silver lining.
Yeah, no, not with our legal system.
Up all the way around.
Yeah, not with the legal system. I wish there was a silver line. That's what we fight for every day.
Amen. Yeah. Life, so many Black boys make choices they can't undo, but those choices don't come from nowhere. They come from lack, from pressure, from fear, from unhealed pain. Have you, as the man you are now, been able to reconcile your past as the boy you once were?
You know what? I don't know if I've ever looked to reconcile, but I know that I'm healing.
Okay.
I know that I'm healing. I know that every day I'm finding peace. I know that every day I'm doing the work and I'm making the decisions to do the work. And I'm going into an exciting new chapter. And I'm so excited. Like, for me, I just know that I survived a lot of things that were supposed to destroy me. And I found a way to take that that caused me pain to actually help others heal. And and when I can talk about my pain, my trauma, my experiences, and people are like, man, I've been battling with that for years. I'm just glad to see you make that post. It's like it takes away the power from the hurt.
Yes.
And that's what I focus on. And I'm just grateful, man. Like, good conscience, righteous heart, not perfect, but always progressing, you know?
Right.
And that's it.
Amen.
No?
Yeah. I thank you for sharing that, because what you just laid out is more than a story. It's a reality so many of our men are living or didn't even live to tell. And I want to say this before we go any deeper, because like you said, I know that you've talked a lot about this, but it's important for my listeners to know, and for you to know, that this is a safe space, and I'm honored you're trusting me and this platform to hold your truth without judgment, without shame, and without filter. Because too many people ask the wrong questions when it comes to incarceration. Too many focus on the time, but not the trauma, the charge, but not the conditioning, the outcome, but not the setup. So I want to shift into what happens after the gavel drops, when a young Black boy gets thrown into cages designed to erase him. The violence, the rage, the emotional numbness, the spiritual isolation that comes when you're surrounded by people who don't care if you break, and a system that hopes you do. So let's talk about what it really means to navigate that space and how you learn to survive it, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You were still just a boy, not a man, not hardened, but still carrying the kind of weight most people don't survive before you even got a chance to really live. And they threw you into a pit. And I don't mean the idea of prison. I mean the real place, the noise, the cold, the eyes on you, the feeling that you're no longer a person, you're property. So let's go there for a minute, not to glorify it, not to relive the trauma, but because people need to understand what it really means when a Black boy gets thrown into a cage. So tell me, Life, how did your body react, your mind? What did you feel when you looked around and realized this was it, real? This was it?
Man, George Jackson said it only takes a few seconds to be changed forever behind those walls. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So much of my, like, I read about the things that our people went through in history, and shackles and ships, and whether I don't know, like, it's so many similarities presently. But I remember I was cuffed behind my back inside of the police precinct after I went to turn myself in, and my mother was screaming. She just wanted to give me a hug, and I couldn't hug her back. And I was suddenly taken behind this wall, and there's something that happens, and I don't know what it is. I speak to it whenever I have the opportunity, but it's something that happens when you go from being free to just crossing that threshold of knowing that you're going behind that wall into a place of confinement.
Right.
And when I walked back there with those detectives and I got sat down in that interrogation room, I was changed forever.
Yeah.
I knew immediately I was no longer in control. Like that's what I did understand immediately.
Yeah.
From that, I learned in jail, being placed in solitary confinement right away. Where the jail I was at, Rappahannock Regional Jail, you get placed in a yellow brick road, solitary confinement, your first at least 72 hours, while they classify you within the jail. And for
Right.
somebody
Right.
that's never dealt with incarceration to get placed
Yeah.
straight into solitary confinement where it's nothing but a concrete slab, a window you can't, or no window, excuse me, a window flap
Right.
that's closed in the door, a tray slot that you get your trays out of, a toilet with brown water, like that's very traumatizing, you know.
And it's psychological. It's psychological because it's adding to the anxiety.
Everything is psychological.
And it's building up to what you are about to face and see that you haven't even seen yet, just heard about, just read about.
All you could do is hear the sounds. All
that's it.
You sitting there and it's just echoing. It's
a real pit.
You can't see nothing, and you can't see outside this box. You're walked in there.
Yeah.
You can hear voices, but all you see is the guards. They place you in the box, and you can hear the sounds of the jail. And you're sitting there with your imagination running wild. Here comes anxiety. Here comes the trauma. You're trying to figure out what those sounds are attached to and what it's going to be like when you get into. I didn't understand what my journey was going to consist of. And then next thing I knew, I was placed in a housing unit. And now I'm in a place where, I'm surrounded by people that have taken people's lives. I'm surrounded by people that's really
a non-violent offender.
Well,
a non-violent offender.
According to their statutes, I was violent, but I'm around people that's waking up choosing to be every day. I was just the kid that drove the people for 30 seconds. These guys woke up every day trying to get it in. So now what happens is, and it happens to a lot of us, and it happens to a lot of us in our communities, but I was in pure fight or flight. I went immediately into fight or flight. And I knew this. I didn't know how, but I knew I was going to survive. Like, that's what I did know.
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a blessing.
Yeah, that's all.
A blessing, because so many people who don't have that spiritual grounding, don't know what discernment, instinct, don't have the tools in the toolbox, you know what I'm saying, to handle for what's coming for them.
Yeah, and when I say, because when I say I know, for anybody, is I was just making a choice. I didn't really know if I was going to, but I was choosing. I knew I was going to fight. I wasn't going to take my last breath behind that wall. And that was one thing jail, like immediately what I learned to do in jail was I learned, and this, nobody take offense to it, but the smartest man in the room controls it. I'm not going to say I was the smartest, but what I learned was, because I sat back immediately in jail, I had a couple fights. I went through those proving grounds in jail, but I learned how to immediately start manipulating the environment. I knew how to holler at the CO lady on the floor and smile at her, you know what I'm saying, and tell her I know some of her people from the street. What you trying to do? I knew
you have to.
I knew how to holler at the big homie over here or this hood, you know what I'm saying, and help him with his legal work because I knew how to read and write really good. You know what I'm saying? So in that environment in jail, when I was going through jail wasn't that bad. Now jail is like prison. But what happened was when I went to prison, all of that was out the window. Prison, they don't care about nothing. And I got sent straight to a level 4 where over 70% of the camp had life sentences. And where I had 19 years.
Goes to die.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Nobody went home from this camp. They closed this camp down. Sussex 2 State Prison. Anybody that's ever been there, salute to y'all, man. Only you and I know exactly what happened behind those walls, man. Sussex 2 State Prison is shut down now for a reason. And that's where I got sent. I spent over 6.5 years there on that camp on 2 separate occasions because I couldn't get it right the first time I made it off there. But when I got sent there, I was a short timer with 19 years. So that tells you the mentality of the people that was on that camp. My first day there, I stepped over a body in the stairwell going to lunch.
Wow.
When I got dropped off at that camp, the first thing they did was shave my head, throw me in burgundies, sent me to a pod, and the CO didn't say nothing to me. He just pointed at the cell and said, "Good luck."
Right. Right. Imagine.
And
because you thought you had a little experience in jail, but this is a whole entirely different beast. Like, what was the first thing anyone said on the block to you? Did anyone show you how to move, or
no?
Did you just have to learn fast and in silence?
No, it's fight or flight, and it's survival, and it's you better pay attention. I was talking to the old heads before I came down the road, trying to get, you know what I'm saying, ask questions like how I'm supposed to move, But I was fortunate enough, I got put in a cell with an old head from Richmond. He was an OG.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Omar, man. And he was somebody, I'm not going to say like he was somebody that was like full of wisdom or like he was saying, trying to tell me save the world, but he was somebody that taught me how to survive. He was somebody that said, "Hey, take this piece of steel." Yeah, he said, "Don't you know, but you don't know. Speak about nothing." He broke down all the he gave me
the unspoken rules.
Yeah, he gave me the culture. Don't gamble. Don't deal with these people. Don't gossip. You know what I'm saying? And that was enough to get me started. But outside of that, I had no allies. I was in Virginia, but I'm from Chicago. And
culture wars on that. People instantly can just hate you depending on what city you come from, what county you from,
and you from another state, and you from another state, you a target. Because one thing they know, if you from another state, they know ain't nobody coming to save you. It's not like you from Richmond, you from a city out there. Everybody was clicked up. So my third day there, I ended up getting jumped by 5 guys. Like I said, 5 guys. I'm about to say fries. I'm hungry right now. But it was 5 guys. Shoot. See, I can laugh about it now. I can joke about it now. But
you have to laugh.
Yeah, you got to.
To balance it out, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
But prison, I mean, that was the crash course. That was like literally the first 72, 96 hours or whatever behind a level 4 maximum security state prison. Yeah. That was it.
What emotions did you have to shut off immediately? Like, was there space to be scared, to grieve, or did fear make? Of course, we know fear would instantly make you a target, but what instantly that you had to shut down within yourself in order to survive there emotionally?
You got to let go of the world. You know, for me, I'm not saying like. There's times where you got to take hold of the world and keep hold of the world in there. And then, but there's times where you got to let go because it's almost like I knew I couldn't focus on the outside right now. Like in order for me to make it through this chapter, I kind of had to have tunnel vision. Like I had to really see what's going on around me because people were up there losing their life. You know what I'm saying? Like this was not a game. And I had to give 100% of my attention. And what happened was, you know, a lot of guys joke about it. Like, bro, you became a scholar of prison. They call you. They call me the prison scholar as a joke. But
it's a stereotype for a lot of black men who decide to try to free their mind. You know?
Well, they speaking
there and learn and educate.
Yeah, well, they speaking on it from the advocacy standpoint of now I'm going into classrooms and I'm teaching classes, criminal justice classes about the prison environment. But the only reason I'm able to,
because I was speaking to the community and how we in turn, you know what I'm saying?
I'm able to go into college. I just shout out to Assumption University. I just spoke to 2 of the criminal justice classes up there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. But I'm only able, and I was doing lectures for colleges while I was still on the inside towards the end of my bid too. Shout out to ECPI, everybody else. So but I'm only able to do that because I studied prison. I studied confinement. I studied the inside because I wanted to survive. You know?
Right. In prison, and I love that because that just sets the stage for the next question, which is that in prison, time isn't linear. It's psychological, spiritual. It's a slow erasure of the self or the painful process of reconstructing oneself. Time doesn't pass, it presses, it bends, it breaks, it becomes something else entirely, a new construct. People on the outside talk about time like it's a clock, but time inside, that's a whole different creature. What did time do to your sense of identity? What does it do to your mind when every day feels the same, but every day you're trying to survive something new?
Well, first and foremost, time is the most valuable thing we'll ever have. Once it's gone, it's gone. And everybody is listening to this interview right now, this conversation. You know, you're spending time with us, so thank you for spending time with us. But I learned the value of time behind those walls. But you said something that's key that I don't think I ever heard anybody really say. Time became spiritual in there, in the sense of when you're incarcerated and you're very coherent to time that whole way through, in the sense of if you have a release date, you're trying to mark days off. But my theory is that a lot of people turn to substances or don't, maintain their sanity behind those walls because they're not able to deal with the concept of time while they're incarcerated. Time reveals all. And when you're in there, you're exposed to yourself. Like when you're incarcerated, you're sitting there, you have time to really reflect on your thoughts. There's not as many distractions as there are in the outside world. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I became conscious. I became conscious of myself, I became conscious of the value of my family, society, all of these things. And, it just became something that I think has became a compass for me, not consuming, but it when I wake up, I move with intention now because I'm conscious of time because of the time that I spent in prison.
Yeah. Let's talk about what really happens behind those walls. And that brings us to like the apex of this conversation. The stuff folks don't want to face. The systems inside the systems that turn pain into policy and strip men down into shells of themselves, because it's not just the sentence. It's the prison culture, the corruption, the hierarchy, the trauma that gets recycled over and over again because healing was never the goal. This ain't about rehabilitation. I've said it often. It's about recidivism. It's about control, profit, a plantation with fluorescent lights and concrete cages. And Black men, many of them nonviolent offenders, are the product. Wardens to the CEOs to the inmates. What's the real chain of command?
I mean, most prisons are controlled by the prisoners. Okay. Maybe we're not pushing the buttons. Maybe guys aren't turning the key, whatever it is. But I would say what's going on, the culture behind those walls. When the COs come in, they fall in line with what's going on with the prisoners. Prisons are just ran by the staff. So, like when you're talking power structure, the general power structure with staff is the warden, major, captain, all that. COs, we understand that. But it's the culture in the cell blocks, in the prisons that you're at. It's the big homies from this city, that city. It's this guy that's got the money on the yard, that's got the influence. It's the shot callers, and unfortunately, prison is one of those environments where if you don't stand up for yourself, you're considered weak or prey or whatever it is, the term that's used in there, and you become a target. And if you're somebody that's assertive and you stand on your own too, for the most part, you can be successful. It's not the same journey for everybody. Where I was at, politics weren't as much as they are out west. I was locked up in Virginia. That's totally different. I tell people all the time, totally different if you were locked up in California. From the people that I talk to that are doing time, have done time out there, or in Texas, where you automatically have to get in cars based on race, etc., XYZ. That's not how it was where I was at. You know what I'm saying? But politics are heavy in prison. If you are in a car where I was at, if you got in a car, it definitely depends. Like, if somebody from your car move this way, your clique moves this way. If you got to move this way, if somebody that you hang with or associate with gets into a fight, you may have to get into a fight too. You know, it's just those types of things. But you know, it's a place where you can survive, but you have to be strategic.
Right. And what I'm trying to get to is corruption, really. Was there any corruption that you witnessed that most folks on the outside would never believe unless they lived it?
Yeah, I was just speaking about Sussex 2 State Prison being closed. Like one of the issues they had up there was the watch commander's office didn't have cameras in it, and they were taking guys in there and they was beating them because there was no cameras in there. They like all of these different situations. Like we had situations where, you know, 2 of the guards jumped the dude in laundry. You know what I'm saying? There's all types of. Here's what we got to understand, right? And I'm not saying by any means, like I know some good former and present correctional officers that do their job. They're trying to help people, believe it or not. You know, whatever. But there's people in there that are vindictive. They're bringing their trauma to the workplace. They're sadistic. Like when I was in the hole, I remember guards telling me, "I dare you to eat these trays. We spit in them." And they tell you that for 4 days straight, and you sitting there trying to figure out if you're gonna eat some food that might have some spit in it, or you're gonna starve. You know what I'm saying? Like
there may be some good ones out there, but your peers are louder than you are, and they're still there. So I'm sorry, I don't care about you being one of the good guys. You know what I'm saying? You're still operating in a culture that perpetuates their activity because they're still working there. Why are they still allowed to work there?
Yeah, I think, you know, I could speak to that too. There's always, if it depends on the climate of the camp, and a lot of time it's reflective of the warden, at least where I was at. If you had a warden that was aggressive, like I've been on a camp where the warden used to come to work with military boots and his dress pants tucked in them. You know what I'm saying? But then I've been I've been on a prison where the warden was cool as heck and used to come through and holler at everybody, shake everybody's hands, and all the guards was like that too. So
we forget it started at the top down and trickle down.
Yeah, and then I also say, like, we do have to have good. There has to have good COs, good police officers, good judges. We can't just abandon the system. We have to have good people. Yeah, good wardens, all that. Because I know some officers that have saved guys' lives, performed CPR, called 911, did things that they had to do in order to make sure guys that, you know, was locked up was still able to be alive and go home.
Right. But let's keep it real. This system wasn't built. This system was built specifically for Black bodies. It's the only system in America that was tailor-made for us. Do you see prison as modern day slavery? And if so, how? I believe you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, but I don't see it. No, I don't think it's about race anymore. I think it's about wealth and poverty. I think it's I think it's about wealth and poverty. I think it's about class now. I think that how it started, we know the history of us not being able to be in juries and be in law enforcement, and how they were, you know, we were still getting arrested once slavery was abolished, all that. We know the start of it, but I think now it's kind of transitioned into this place where, you know, you see people of all races behind those bars now. Especially in a place like where I was at in VA, it was diverse, believe it or not.
But we can't ignore the numbers.
Yeah, we don't ignore the numbers.
Considering that we're a very small majority of the population.
Yeah, I just don't come from that standpoint, because I need everybody to understand that the data says 1 out of every 2 in the entire country is impacted by incarceration. And if I speak about it in a certain way where I just make it an issue for one people or race or class, then it could potentially run away from the people that could or will be willing to assist. So that's why I'm very
appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm very vocal in saying incarceration is something that's impacting everybody now. But especially
for the sake of this conversation, Kings Unchained, we are specifically focusing on Black men in the community. But I definitely respect that, and I appreciate that, because that goes to a larger conversation about the difference between being an ally and a witness, and getting the support of the community, and the community is hue. It's a hue. It's not just reflective of Black and brown bodies. It's reflective of all of us. So please don't get it twisted. I hate having to even make this disclaimer because I need people to know that these conversations are for everybody. But for the sake of Kings Unchained, and what I'm doing is I'm lending voice to where people don't often get to hear. And that's from the Black male perspective. But getting back to it, Chris, and I'm sorry, but it's always important for me to add those little intermissions because sometimes people come in and they take things out of context, and that changes the narrative. And I definitely don't want the narrative of this conversation to be turned into anything other than what it is, and that's just reflective dialogue that's going to help push the positive narratives forward. So I really want to focus and descend into one of the darkest, most brutal realities of incarceration, isolation. Not just solitary confinement as a policy, but the psychological crucifixion that happens when a man is stripped of time, sound, touch, connection, and control. I want to talk about what happens to the mind when it has nowhere left to go but inward, because we're not designed to be alone. We're not built to be untouched, unseen, unheard. So I want to sit with what happened in that box, not to your body, but to your mind, your spirit, your identity. Let's walk through the mental stages, the unraveling, and what you had to hold on to when empathy, comfort, and connection didn't exist. Do you remember the exact moment you knew they were sending you to isolation? What was the lead up? Was it confrontation, resistance, rebellion, safety, or just control?
Well, first and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on your platform. I believe in conversation, and for anybody that watches my stuff, I don't focus on race. So it's good that although I support her platform, I do have a different perspective. And anybody that knows my stuff, when I speak about prison, I continue to say it impacts everyone. Right. So I want everybody to focus on the topic. But as far as solitary confinement goes, I knew once they started walking me into that hallway. When they started walking me into that hallway and I could see all the doors with the flaps on them, I knew where I was at. And when I was in there, and that door closed, and I knew nobody was coming back for me. I knew nobody that loved me could walk back in there and turn the key, open the door. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's when I knew I was in a place where there was no empathy, where nobody was concerned with if I was shedding tears in there, they wouldn't have cared because other people, they've been shedding tears in there. So at that point, it was all, we were down the road now, and it was, man, it was scary. it was absolute. Yeah, it was, because, and that's what I was saying. It's just, if anybody, man, it's the sudden shock. It's the jolts, right? There's a place where you become numb to the pain, but it's like that initial, when they first give you a shot with a needle and it hits that skin, man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And yeah.
Did you meet parts of yourself in that isolation that you never faced before? Like, what version of yourself did you meet in that cell that you didn't even know existed?
Well, I found the part of me, I guess, that needed, or I guess I found the part of me, or started paying attention more to the part of me that was paying attention to God. Yeah. I started to pray. I started to study the word, because where I was at in the hole, they gave you your hygiene, they gave you stamps, they gave you, stuff to write letters, and they gave you the choice of a religious book. I chose a Bible, and I prayed, and I read the Bible, and I thought about just all the times my Aunt Sheila prayed with me, my mother, my grandmother, because I came up with a praying family. And I started to focus on that. I started to focus on, like, just the righteous things. I started to focus on the things that weren't of the world, like getting into just scriptures and stuff like that. And I was fasting back there, like, because I was inadvertently fasting because I didn't want to get sick from the food, or they was threatening to spit in it or whatever. And I was starting to write poetry because I didn't have anything else to do back. Yeah. So I started to write poetry, and I don't know, I like writing poetry. I started to write rap songs and just stuff to keep my mind going. But all in all, I spent over 3.5 years, well, excuse me, over 3 years, close to 3.5 years in solitary confinement.
What?
Yeah.
And I don't mean like what, but it's just
Mama was like, what?
What? I can't even process that, because all I know is the existence on the other side that you are existing in now. What we consider isolation is turning our phone on do not disturb and cutting the ringer off, or you know what I'm saying, or just stepping away and going somewhere for a second. But you had none of that. So when you came out of that box, who were you? How did you transition back into housing? And there, did you ever wish to go back?
Yeah, I was messed up, and thank you for asking that question. And I just want to say that the questions you're at, like, it's, if anybody's ever interviewing or speaking to somebody about prison, like, you can tell when people are studying or paying attention or whatever. Like, so good questions. And
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
but let me just, can I just say something?
Yeah,
this is a conversation. It's not an interview.
Oh,
People
my fault.
to know this is a dialogue.
Okay,
we are having a conversation.
Okay.
But I am asking some, not you. That's not for you, but it's for the audience, because it's important for us to have these conversations and be able to have them with each other. Chris don't know me. Mr. Life don't know me from a can of paint. He just know the surface Mamba, what he sees of my movement in social media spaces and how I move. So that was enough for him to connect with me, and that has to be enough for us to connect with each other. So yeah, but back to that. I'm sorry. Yeah, tell me about that.
What was the question again? My apologies.
Well, no, don't be. When you came out of that box, who were you? How did you transition?
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to speak on specifically. So solitary confinement messed me up, because what happened was, then I realized, like, it was quieter in solitary confinement. I could sleep. You know, I didn't have to worry about looking over my shoulder. And there were times in my bed when I was out of solitary confinement where I was trying to go back and be in the home, because I was just trying to get a break, you know, and rest my mind. But one of the things that I brought home with me that I feel like was one of the I guess one of the PTSD things or whatever was I kind of started confining myself once I came home. And I wonder, one of the things I spoke to my therapist about, I said, I wonder if that was a symptom of that, or, you know, and he was like, quite possibly, because you're conditioned. All those years. But
that's a long time.
Yeah.
We cry if we can't, you know, if we haven't connected with somebody in a few days or a week or a month or a year. I haven't seen my father in over a year. We talk, but I haven't seen him. I haven't laid physical eyes on my father. Time on this side is a different construct. Get out your head. Stop. Don't even measure time as you would on a calendar, on a clock, in seconds and minutes. This is spiritual time. This is psychological time. This is a different construct. And I think it's something people really don't delve into enough. That psychological warfare that's taking place.
That's real, though. That's real.
I thank you for walking us through all of that. And I don't even know if you answered that question or not, but it don't matter, because I think we feel it. I think with that alone, I can't even imagine. And it's not that I'm not even trying to parlay there, but I need people to have the full spectrum, not just from the past, and the present and the future, but just getting to the root of it. So I thank you, like, for walking us through that. And I know it wasn't easy to say, because every time people forget, just because he may laugh and do all of that and has been able to sharpen his testimony and be effective and create a platform, that doesn't mean that every time we talk about these things, we are reliving the trauma in some sense, because he has to put and I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk about you in the third person as I'm talking to the audience, but I can only imagine that what you had to do. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard and it's heavy, and I just know it wasn't easy. And a lot of people listening, it won't be easy to sit with either, but we needed to hear the truth in all of it. So everything you shared, the mental isolation, the silence, the skin starvation, the daily dismantling of self, that's broken policy, and that's by design, but you live through it and most won't. So this system was never about justice. It was about profit, as you said. It's about pain. It's about, to me, and for the purpose of this, it's about erasing Black men in every way that matters, spiritually, emotionally, sexually, economically. Because when you finally get out, if you make it out, you still won't gain your freedom. That's a lie. People think release is the end of the story.
That's
true. They think you made it. But they don't realize how many cages still exist out here. They don't understand how strange the world feels when you've been gone that long. Yep. How shallow some conversations sound, how fast everything moves, how loud people complain about the things that don't even matter when you face real survival. Yep. So how coming back home for most is just another version of the trap. The system doesn't stop when the door is open. It just changes clothes. Now you're facing barriers to housing, employment, mental health care, even family.
Yes,
no
so
support,
many
no
people.
grace.
Yeah. Facts.
Just stigma, surveillance, and a slow return to the cage they expect you to walk back into. They are banking on it.
60%.
So to me, it's slavery in a new uniform. And somehow, after all that, you came home and started building. So before we talk about the power you stepped into, like, let's sit with that for a moment. You walked into the gates as a teenager and walked out of the gates as a man. What met you, and what did you have to fight through again just to find your footing?
So I got locked up at 19, came home 36.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got locked up, Facebook didn't exist. People didn't use smartphones. People barely text. The phone was like the Nextel chirps, you know. I came home in 2020. Everybody had smartphones. Everybody was on social media. Everybody text. There were, all these things going on. Then the pandemic hit, the same year, 2 months after I came home. So I came home with a severe level of PTSD on top of it all. I came home now a married man with a home, a mortgage, living in a cul-de-sac. I didn't have the struggle that a lot of people had initially. I had a great foundation coming in.
Right.
But mentally, I was out my mind. Mentally, I was not well, and there were not enough mental health resources out here. There were not enough support groups out here, and rightfully so. I mean, again, the pandemic just kicked off. Nobody knew if the world was going to be there. You know what I'm saying? The next day. So, it was a entire situation of me transitioning back into society, and I had a lot of things I had to overcome initially.
Okay. I want to honor something you just said. And you mentioned just about the family that you've built and you've created and what you've been able to amass for yourself in this time. So somewhere in the middle of all that, you found love. Like, you became a husband. You stepped into a life with a woman who had to love you through the unlearning, the rebuilding, and the rediscovering. So as a Black woman, I'm going to honor that. So let's talk about what freedom really felt like, what love looked like, what navigating the real world really looks like. Because I imagine some stuff felt petty once you came home, like people arguing over nonsense, bills, traffic, followers, drama. What did you see different? What felt?
Everybody was hostile. Everybody was agitated. Everybody was angrier in society than they were in prison. And I think that was it. I think that was the major thing that I saw.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello?
Yeah,
no, I can't.
I lost down here for a second. I heard it in my headphones.
Yep. Still can't hear you. But
yeah, go ahead and work that out. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but
no,
I apologize.
No, you're good.
Yeah, but because we're gonna move on to your wife here.
Yeah, but no, I was transitioning that, transitioning to society and having to overcome technology, navigating, a society that was full of anxiety, and a whole bunch of other societal shifts, and it was just a unique experience, coming home, not having mental health support alone was a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. I'm here. So if you just hear it going out, I'm trying to look for waveform, but I don't know what's happening around here, Mr. Chris. But as long as you can hear me, that's all that matters. It's gonna record on what I got going on anyway.
Yeah, you're just really low, but I can hear you faintly for sure.
Okay. And I apologize to the audience for that. And some things, this is life behind content creation and things of that nature.
For sure.
But do you ever feel like the world out here is another version of the institution? Like the world's changed, the guards became cops, inmates became neighbors, but the control is still there?
Yeah, everything is a system. I think that's why I came home and approached the world the way that I did. I knew that I was in my mind. I felt like I was leaving one prison to walk into a bigger one, and I knew that I didn't want to be confined by the regular everyday system of a 9 to 5. Well, shout out to anybody that's got a 9 to 5. I'm not saying don't work the 9 to 5, but I just knew like I wanted to live a life where I could take control of my time as much as possible. And, and that's kind of what motivated me. I seen everything as a system from the outside in.
What's something you wish people on the outside would stop saying to men who just came home?
I don't know if it stops saying. I just wish everybody would stop thinking that every man that came home from prison was okay. A lot of us, we're gonna want to present strength, and I'm not saying that we're weak, but what I'm saying is that we got to go through a healing process when we come home from prison, and that there's a part of that process where whether it's anxiety, whether it's whatever it is that hits, it typically hits all of us when we're coming home, especially from long-term incarceration and confinement. So I just wish people would say more, or not think that we're okay, or stop putting so much on our shoulders right when we walk out of basically a lot of times a war zone.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I'm not gonna keep you too much longer. We've talked about the system, the cage, the silence, all of that, the faux freedom, but I want to take a moment to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention, and that's love. Because coming home don't just mean stepping back into the world. It means learning how to be in relationships again with people, with touch, with emotion. It means figuring out how to be soft when you've had to be hard for so long. You left as a teenager before you even had the chance to learn how to love, how to trust, how to be vulnerable in real life with real people, and yet you found love. You built a family, and that's something. So I want to hold space for that, for the woman who stood beside you, for the version of you that had to learn what partnership really looks like outside of pain. Tell me about what love looked like for you when you first came home and what you had to unlearn just to receive it.
Man, let me tell you something. My wife is my everything. Like she like I can't even articulate what she means to me. I mean, she's my heart. She's somebody that she had grace in her heart for me. You know what I'm saying? When I came home, I was hard. I might not have done like the crazy stuff that dudes do or guys do, but just the way I spoke, just that energy into the house, for weeks, months, because I was dealing with depression and trauma. And first, I just want to say I'm grateful that I got a woman that's grounded in Christ. She's prayed up. She's faithful. You know what I'm saying? She's just a good woman. And she was realistic. Like, she told me before I came home, I used to tell her, I'm like, freedom is easy. And she would tell me, baby, that it's not going to be that way. The hard part's out here. Right. And I'm grateful that I had a woman that spoke into me. You know what I'm saying? First and foremost, when I first met my wife, she prayed for me, But I guess what I want to say is, to anybody that's in a relationship with somebody that's getting ready to come home from incarceration, it's not going to be easy, because a lot of times you're dealing with somebody that, not saying you guys don't love each other, but you don't know each other in the sense that you haven't experienced life together on the outside. Things have shifted a lot of times. A lot of these relationships start from a place where people don't know each other, not from through lived and shared experience. And you don't know the trauma that an individual is going to bring. You don't know the healing that a person has to go through in order to be the person that you want them to be. And a lot of times it's unfortunate, but people that are in these relationships, before somebody comes home, they fall in love with the fantasy versions of each other, or what they want each other to be, but they haven't had an opportunity to even take steps or be tested to become that. And it's a process, and the success rate for these relationships is not high, but it can work. Because fast forward, me and my wife, we celebrated over 5 years of marriage. We had our vow renewal, and we're no problem, and we're still stronger than ever. Yep, no problem. And the thing is, when it comes to these types of relationships, you have to do the work, y'all. Like, it takes the work. You got to work on yourself individually, and then work on yourselves together.
Hear you. All right, here we go. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, perfect. I apologize for that, Chris. I know you were highlighting about people coming home in relationships and what to expect and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I just wanted you to go back a little bit of anything of what you said.
Oh man, I couldn't even repeat that if I tried. I ain't lying to you. I just said a mouthful.
I know the recording probably picked it up, and if not, I know that Facebook did.
Yeah, somebody
did, so that's all that matters.
Right.
But I apologize for that.
No problem. No problem.
I want to take a moment that's enough. I know you talked about your wife, you talked about what does partnership mean to you now? Not just love, but walking beside someone who really sees you, scars and all.
Partnership, well, I feel like people need to pay attention to that word more, but I actually have a partner. It's unfortunate we live in a society now where people may be married, but they're not partners.
Right.
And I would say, for me, she's my wife, but she's my business partner. She's my confidant. We've already, since I've been home in less than 5.5 years, have opened up a vocational school, Lasting Layers of Beauty Institute. We founded a nonprofit together. We've created a successful, social media platform that reaches over 20 million people globally every month.
Yes.
But we've done everything together. That's the bottom line. I tell my brothers all the time, and a lot of my brothers is locking, but find that one and lock in and build something great. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna go through ups and downs, in betweens. You're gonna go through it, but man, if you lock in with somebody and really do the work together and accomplish goals together and really start building a foundation, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Man, that's a beautiful thing. And I just love love. And I definitely love Black love. I just love it. So You've spoken about love in the personal sense and a little bit on that professional side with your partner, your wife, what it means to be loved through healing. Now I want to expand that and shift it wider, because love ain't just what we give to our partners, it's what we give back to our people. I also want to take the moment to honor the Black women in our communities, the ones who love not just their partners, but the men around them, who advocate, who nurture, who believe in brothers even when the world has given up on them. That kind of love, it doesn't always make headlines, but it saves lives. And I see that same love showing up in your work, because you didn't just come home and try to forget. You came back calling, a mission, a movement. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Life Unit, about how you're still pouring love and structuring into people who are built to be forgotten, about the brothers you still walk with, fight for, and refuse to leave behind. You didn't just survive the system, you turned around and started building something for those still caught in it, and I love you for that, King. So let's talk about that, about your platform, the Life Unit. I want to know the mission, the movement, the lives you're touching, what it means to lead from a place of lived experience, how you're still loving, still serving, still showing up, and where you see all this headed next.
Yeah, so man, Life Unit Inc. So when I was in prison, I got knowledge of self, and I studied with the 5%ers. You guys can read up on them and all that good stuff. And there was a good brother. His name is Poetic Life for Law. And when I was studying, he gave me the nickname Life, and I can go into all that, the culture and all that. But he's still behind bars to this day. He's done over 22 years now. His name's Jefferson Ellie. And what happened was, when I first got on the internet, I got on the internet for him. I did a Facebook post. Yeah, I did a Facebook post telling his story, because I wanted to get support to get him home. And we ended up getting over 180,000 signatures in support of his release just from that initial, Facebook Live. And
that's community. That's what social media is made for.
Yeah. Social media is powerful when it's used the right way. Yeah, when it's used the right way. And so that was the motivation for me getting on the internet. From me getting on the internet and then beginning to tell my story as well. Platform continued to grow. And I never wanted a nonprofit, honestly, because I didn't know if I could run one or, start one. I didn't know what it all entailed. And what a lot of people just called for me to have one, that wanted to support or lend resources or any of that. So I was urged to open up a 501c3. I ended up calling it the Life Unit Inc. Life is the opposite of death. We focus on prevention, intervention, and reentry work. And through that work, I'm proud to announce that tomorrow I'll be receiving a proclamation from the city of South Fulton and the mayor there. But
and that's there in Illinois?
No, this is in Georgia. We down here. Yep, we down here in the A. No problem. And but we do work, the preventive work.
Congratulations too, by the way.
Thank you so much. And the preventive work is done in the schools. It's done in the households. It's done in the rec centers. It's done in anywhere we can get, where we teach different curriculums, coping skills curriculums. We provide different community events and interactive events and things of this nature to prevent our youth from going to prison. The intervention work is gang intervention. It's getting in there in family intervention, youth intervention, anybody that may be headed down the wrong path and just attempting or intervening outright, whatever that means, whether it's coming in there being a big brother mentor, one of the sisters that's in the org come through, whatever it is, we put support in that area and we intervene with the negativity. And then the reentry work is just our brothers and sisters that are coming home and our juveniles. We make sure to the best of our ability that we combat that 60% statistic. Right now, the data says that within the first 3 years, 60% of those incarcerated go right back. So we provide our own form of reentry curriculum. We collect our own data. Our data proves that our numbers are much lower. But it's the same thing. We're teaching things like conflict resolution to individuals that are coming home after 20 years in prison. We do coping skills. We do emotional intelligence. We do all the things that we need, especially those of us that are Black and brown in certain communities. Even though I say penitentiary affects all of us, certain issues affect, especially when it comes to trauma and not getting the help that we need, and coping skills and things of this nature, because the environments we come up in, we try to get in there, teach those things. But the other thing is we're getting ready to launch a digital learning channel where everybody will be able to get free education, etc.
Okay.
And then I travel as an ambassador for my org, as a motivational speaker full time, throughout the country. So I'm grateful.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you considered maybe e-learning? Maybe a program that you can offer for inmates?
Already on it. I got some digital workbooks getting ready to launch and get to going, y'all. Yep.
Great job.
Definitely excited. Yep.
You've talked about the support you've received from all over. Have you received any kind of resistance from this work you're doing? From the systems, from people, even from your own spirits?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I'm just one of those people. I don't, I'm gonna go and do the work regardless. But I've received threats. I've received anything you can think of. I've received that on a negative end. Whether I've had people message me and tell me they know where I live and they put the city and all types of stuff, right? But I look at it like this: if you're that offended by somebody that came home from incarceration and is doing something good in life, and you're going out your way, but you got to understand we're in a time where there's trolls and there's all these different things, and I'm not too concerned, but to anybody that's building anything, y'all, you're gonna get scrutinized. Like, if you're gonna build something like just mediocre or subpar, you might not get, but if you're trying to build something great in this world and do something that other people haven't done, or do something better than how it's been getting done, you're gonna get the negativity. That's part of the balance. So please be ready for that. All my people, my entrepreneurs, my business, anybody, you're gonna get that, and that's okay. That's okay. That means you're doing it what you need to do well.
That's right. Share a moment with me that reminded you why this work matters. Something or someone that affirmed you were on the right path with the Life Unit.
Just being on the right path with the Life Unit, it's really just
not so much the Life Unit, but your path that you're walking. This advocacy.
Yeah.
I definitely want to highlight a positive moment from the work that you're doing.
Yeah,
that's affirming for you.
Yeah, I think for me, being that you asked a question like that, I think it's the on social media. Every day I get hundreds of messages across the platforms, emails, messengers, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. I can't respond to them all, but I'm always moved by every single one of them. Like, I have people that send me people are praying for me. Like, I just want to start there. I get messages every day from people. Like, they send in voice notes to prayers early in the morning. I wake up 4 a.m. I got a prayer for me. I got people that have never been to prison. I got a mom that's stage 4 right now, and she's fighting. She's fighting for her life right now. And she's like, yo, I listened to your story 144 years, and you fought through that for 17 years. I can keep fighting through. And that's what it's about for me. Yeah, man. Shout out to her, because that's what it's about. Like, my message is about prison, but it's not. My message is about mindset and resilience. It's about what happens when you choose to fight through, and that's when I'm reminded, when I'm reminded, I get those words and the stories and people sharing their thoughts and, their support. It moves me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Life, if people want to support, show up, or help amplify your message, what's the best way for them to connect with you and the work you're into?
Yeah, well, best way to connect with me is you can connect with me on, if you look at any of my social media profiles, platforms, you can just message me direct. My emails are always on all my profiles, and just look me up, Christopher Life Willers, or Google me. But yeah, you can just Google me. I learned that one of the youngest said, "Oh, we just gotta Google you. All your stuff pop up." I said, "Whoa, okay." I said, "Ain't nothing crazy. Ain't no mug shot."
SEO is working for you. SEO is working for you. I need that kind of SEO energy over here.
Thank goodness. But I think like if anybody really wants to do anything for me, is just amplify the post, like share, like, comment. Last month altogether, we touched close to 35 million people across 4 platforms. Each time, yeah, because I look at it like this: like each time somebody sees a post, they may choose to not go to prison or to the grave. You know, I get messages from so many young people that's like, I jumped out, I didn't get in the car. I was gonna go do this, but I ain't gonna do that. Hey, OG, you know, but just check us out. Check us out, the Life Unit. You know, look us up, the Life Unit Inc. And just we're always posting stuff on the website. There's always events. I'm headed to Houston for a conference for criminal justice. I'm headed to Virginia. I've got Maine on the calendar. I've got Colorado Springs. Yeah, so catch me in a city near you. And I want to say this too, if I can. If y'all message me or email me or whatever, I will fly to your city and fly back out without you guys having to pay for my flights. I'm in a unique unique situation right now where my flights are sponsored the next 11 months and some days. And if anybody wants me or can get me in, I don't want to, I think I can get, no, if you get me into a jail, a prison, a church, a school, a mosque, or something, anywhere where I can lend my voice and hopefully change some people's minds, message me or hit up Mamba on her platform or something, and let us. I fly out there, right? I fly out there tomorrow. I'm so serious. I tell everybody this, and that's how you see these cities starting to get booked.
Serious it is, and that's how serious we need to be about it. This is a cold blue emergency.
Yeah. Oh, Oh yeah.
If you all didn't get all that, it doesn't matter. You can either press rewind or you can just go to the direct notes, the show notes, where his direct links will be there for the Life Unit, the work, the mission. It is all there. So when this episode ends, I want you to go support, not scroll past, not just say that was powerful or drop your engagement emojis. Go support this righteous work. Go share it. Go discuss it. Because we're not just here to talk. We're here to break chains. And Chris, Life, he's a chain breaker, a living testament, metaphorically and literally, of resurrection, redemption, and the power of finding purpose and pain. And if anything, that's right on time for the holiday we just witnessed. And if you've ever doubted whether that's possible, look at it. Look at him, his platform. He's proof that it is. Now, Life, I told you that this conversation may get lengthy, but I hope it hasn't felt that way. We're about to wrap up, but before I let you go, I want to give you the space to say anything still sitting in your spirit and play it forward. I want you to start right here. What's the message you leave for the next Black king who sits behind this mic? For the ones listening right now, for the teenagers still stuck in the system, you survived because iron sharpens iron. So what do you want to leave behind that might sharpen another brother who's still in the fire?
Man, I'm gonna try to keep it short. This morning, somebody sent me a video of a 9-year-old little girl up in Bronx, New York, that got handcuffed by ICE. She was on her way to school, and that's why I say salute to Mamba's podcast, but I'm Black and Hispanic. I'm multicultural, multi-race, but salute to Black Mama's podcast for sure. But I seen this video of this little girl, 9 years old, 10 at the oldest, handcuffed, crying on her way to school. And I just thought to myself, this is the world that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
To my young people, I want to challenge you specifically to become the leaders that we need. And that may seem weighty. That might seem like we throwing some weight on you. But we need new vision. We need new energy. We need new life. But I also want to challenge my young people to look at other people as leaders in society, not the negative people, but start looking past who they're trying to put at you on the TV, on social media. Start reading, start going out into the community, start volunteering, see who's leading in your communities. Talk to your coaches, whatever it is, but start now, because they're trying to take anybody that's not wealthy, they're trying to take you out. If you ain't got no money, they're trying to make you a part of the system.
Yeah.
Educate yourself and know that you don't have to be confined by that system that they're trying to confine you in. You know, you're talking to somebody that after 17 years of prison was able to open a school. You know, you're talking to somebody that was able to retire his wife this year, you know, and works from his phone. And I don't say none of these things to brag. I say these things so you know that you can do more.
Yes.
You know, I've done it in 5 years, but imagine if you stay free, like I say in all my videos. And
imagine if you stay free.
Just imagine that. You know, so we're counting on you. You know, we're here to support. Believe it or not, there's some OGs like myself. We're here to support, and we're here to listen to you, to understand. We want to listen to understand, not just hear you. We want to listen to understand. A lot of people, they just hearing you. They don't. They just talking. We're here to listen to understand. But that's it, man. The youth. We're in a time where things are not right. Evil is real, and you don't have to be a part of that, man. It's a crazy time. I'll get to going because I never thought I'd see it as somebody coming home from confinement, that I would feel like I was in a world that was confined. And now that they've got ICE running into
access to everybody.
Yeah,
it's still, you know, it's an illusion.
Oh, there's just, and I keep, and not to get stuck on the ICE thing, but the videos of, you can wake up and ICE will be in your neighborhood dragging people out of their homes, and then if you don't think it can happen to you because you're over here, you live here, hey, there's a couple people that got sent over there already that lived over here and were born here. So don't get me started.
Just our brown brothers and sisters, because we're not that far from a dystopian reality where it's our federal government, and then is martial law, and then it's curfew, and then it's the complete just dissolvement of your basic civil rights. Don't think it's not possible. We're watching it trying to happen in real time right now, and I don't see the alarm bells ringing. I just don't know where. So I appreciate you, Chris, and I thank you. Thank you for being willing to show up unapologetically raw and unfiltered and honest, for not just speaking from the wounds, but from the wisdom. You didn't have to share the things you shared today, but you did. And that speaks volumes about the kind of man you are. You're not just walking in purpose life, you're walking in power. You are proof that the system may try to break us, but it can't bury what God intends to resurrect. You're a builder, a breaker of chains, a disruptor of silence. And what you're doing through the Life Unit, what you're pouring into our people, it's necessary, it's timely, it's legacy. So thank you for trusting me, for trusting this space, and for speaking into every Black and brown man listening today, whether he's behind the wall or fighting to stay free on the outside. It's been an absolute honor to hold space with you, King, and I hope that you'll come back and do it again with me one day.
Yes, thank you for having me. I definitely love being on the platform, having this conversation for sure.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you and your platform and allowing me to, speak my perspectives, my truths, and all that. So thank you so much.
Okay, no doubt. Until we connect in the ether, Chris, please let us piggyback off each other's platform and help push your content and content of substance to the top of the algorithm. Let's get to work. Peace.
Peace.
How do you feel?
I'm ready to go eat, and you know what I'm talking about.
I haven't even eaten today. I was so nervous to talk to you.
What?
I really wanted to take care with your testimony, with your story, because that's how serious it is to me. I don't take these things lightly at all. And I know that's kind of hard.